Taking a look now at your AFC playoff picture. Plenty of movement here on Sunday, and most notably, the team that did not play is now in first place. The Bills winning on Thursday night, now 9-3, equal footing with the Chiefs, who took the loss against the Bengals, but they do own that head-to-head to the Bills. So currently, if the season were to end, it's the Bills with that coveted bye and home field advantage. Elsewhere, interesting to keep an eye on Baltimore as Lamar Jackson left that game with a knee injury. Much like last year, Lamar injury late in the season cost that team an eventual playoff berth. Let's break it down with the guys. Plenty of movement here as we dig in with Ryan Wilson and John Breech. John, I'll go your way first here, coming off of a big Cincinnati win over Kansas City, and then some Lamar news as well. What really jumps off the page at you here? Big shifts, seismic shifts across the AFC here in Week 13.
Well, I think it's that the Bengals, have to feel pretty good about their chances of winning the AFC North now. Obviously, they don't have the tiebreakers working in their favor because of their division record, so they're probably going to have to finish a game ahead of the Ravens. But if Lamar Jackson's out just 1 week, 2 weeks, if he's out any period of time, that obviously would be a big boost to the Bengals division title chances. And then you look at the Chiefs and the Bills. Look, those two teams are tied in the first two spots, but Buffalo has that all-important head-to-head tiebreaker. So that's a huge one for Buffalo. And then, one team that's falling quickly is Tennessee, but it doesn't matter because they play in the AFC South and they could go 9-8 and still make the playoffs. So it does feel like this is going to be a three-horse race between the Bills, Chiefs, and Bengals to get that number one overall seed.
It's funny you're suddenly on the Bengals bandwagon as the local Bengals homer, Breech, because just last week on the pod we were talking, and I was convinced that the Bengals were going to win the division. You said, well, hold up here. Their schedule is incredibly tough, starting with the Chiefs, and they just beat the Chiefs, and I think that sort of greases the wheels for things to go a lot easier down the stretch. Now, Lamar Jackson's going to be a huge issue in terms of his availability with the knee injury. Tyler Huntley does a good Lamar Jackson impression. We saw that last year, and we saw at the end of the game today against Denver. But as you noted, Breech, the issue is when you're 1-3 in the division, as the Bengals somehow are. That's like perhaps the weirdest stat of the season so far, and the Ravens are currently 2-0. That's a hurdle to overcome. I still think that the Bengals can win by a game or more. The other big news in the conference for me, Joe and John, is that the Chiefs couldn't afford to lose this game because the Bills they had their little valley 3 or 4 weeks ago when Josh Allen was banged up and they lost those games, that stretch there with the Vikings and the Jets, and now they're back. And now the Chiefs, they're going to the playoffs. They'll probably be just as good as they always have been, but they may have to travel. And they blew an opportunity against a team that they cannot beat. They cannot beat the Bengals in Kansas City. They can't beat them in Cincinnati. They probably lose them on Mars. It does not matter. They have their number. So they may have to go on the road now unless the Bills slip up late, and it just doesn't feel like they're going to do that. So that's going to be another interesting thing to watch over the last month of the season.
And a full 10 days between for Josh Allen and the Bills to get right from that Thursday win to their Sunday meeting next week in Week 14 with the Jets. Here's a look at the NFC playoff picture, and most notably the loss of Jimmy Garoppolo puts that 8-4 into question. When you take a look at that Niners defense and Brock Purdy, what he was able to accomplish, we already touched upon it, guys, but really we'll see if they can hold their water. It's the Vikings and the Eagles at the top of the conference right now. The Eagles 11-1, the Vikings nipping at their heels following a big win again here on Sunday. And then even more interesting is things in the wild card picture is the Giants now 7-4-1, Commanders 7-5-1 with that tie on Sunday. What sort of wrench do you see that eventually throwing into the final picture, Ryan Wilson?
This is going to be a lot of fun. If you're the Cowboys, you're probably sort of unhappy at the fact that you're playing really good football and you're going to have a lot of work to do to catch the Eagles. But in terms of the bottom of that bracket, I love what Eugene Cyril Smith III is doing in Seattle, where he's putting that team on his back. The defense stinks, the front seven, especially in Seattle. They have to fix that in the offseason. In the meantime, they're just hanging on for dear life. But they're doing it, and they're actually going to threaten the 49ers, as we just talked about earlier, now that Jimmy Garoppolo is out for the year. Meanwhile, you have Washington, who got the tie against the Giants in a game that Washington could have won, but the Giants could make the same case. And you wonder if that half a game, win or lose, is going to make the difference between whether Washington finds their way into the playoffs or not. And a team, I love this team so much, and I've been on the Dan Campbell bandwagon for a while, and I say all the time, I don't know if he can coach, but you'd run through a wall for him. This team is playing hard for Dan Campbell. Jared Goff is outplaying Matthew Stafford when they were both healthy, and it's not even been close. And Jared Goff has played, I won't say at an MVP level, but he's played at a Detroit Lions MVP level, and he's a huge reason for their success. So I want to keep an eye on what the Lions can do over the next few weeks, because they could eke their way into that 7th seed, and that would be an amazing story down the stretch.
Yeah, I think the one issue with the Lions, as hot as they have been over the past few weeks, is that they're going to have to go 5-0 down the stretch just to get to 10 wins, and that is a big ask. Because you're going to have to get the 10 wins. Because if the Giants or Commanders get to 9 wins, your 9-8 record doesn't beat their 9-7-1 record. So that tie actually may end up being a big help for either the Giants or the Commanders, unless they tie each other in the standings. But you know what? The weird thing to me about the NFC playoff standings is probably going to bring up a big debate about what team should get to host home playoff games. Is the Cowboys might very well end up going 13-4, 14-3 is still in play, and they're going to be playing on the road against what could be an 8-9 Buccaneers team. The NFC South has been absolute garbage this year. A losing record might very well end up taking that division, and so you're going to have the Cowboys, probably the second or third best team in the NFC, playing on the road. But, you know, I think the top two, the pecking order in that conference is pretty set with the Eagles and the Vikings. But after that, everything's up in there, especially with Jimmy Garoppolo's injury. You don't know if the 49ers are in that top three, that top tier anymore. So I think things could get a little bit crazy. The tie with the Commanders and Giants, no Jimmy Garoppolo. I am pretty pumped about how this NFC playoff run is going to go down the stretch.
Best part about it, there's only one way to find out. That's each and every Sunday with our guys. Thank you, fellas.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.